Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. NCP party stalwart Sharad Pawar has talked about a possible reshaping of the opposition after the 2024 elections. He has said that in the next couple of years, several regional parties will associate more closely with the Congress, or they may look at the option of merging with the Congress if they believe that it's best for their party. This, he says, is possible as it is difficult to adjust or digest Narendra Modi. Now, with Sharad Pawar hinting at the possibility of all parties coming together, the opposition coming together, will we say that the breakaway factions of the Congress are coming back? To talk about this, I have with me today in the News9 Plus show Banuchandar, Nagarajan, Jayant, Mainkar, my colleague Kiran Tare, and of course my colleague Brijesh Pandey here with me in the News9 Plus studio. Brijesh, start by breaking this down for us. Sharad Pawar talking about the Congress coming together. He's said this a number of times in the past, but the timing of this is really interesting.
Well, I think what Sharad Pawar is hinting at is that if situation doesn't turn out the way he's expecting,
right,
then there's a possibility that NCP Sharad Pawar might merge with the Congress, and if he's able to strike a good deal for his daughter Supriya Sule, get her a prominent position in the politics of Maharashtra, then that would be a curtains for a well-played innings. But I would like to believe that if situation doesn't turn out that way, if NCP goes on to win important enough number of seats to throw in their muscle and all, and if Supriya Sule wins Baramati, then it'll be a completely different Sharad Pawar we will see once the results are out on the 4th of June.
Sharad Pawar always with a plan B ready just before the elections. And Kiran, break down for us this point that Sharad Pawar made about the future of the opposition post the June. Is this family planning, as Brijesh seems to indicate, that he's carving a path out for Supriya Sule?
Yes, of course, it's more than a family matter rather than a political matter. I remember Sharad Pawar's interview, which I had taken several years back, and that time he had said that Congress is the need of the hour, and the country cannot go without Congress. Congress Mukta Bharat cannot be a reality. So the country needs it. He had said it very clearly, but this time Pawar he has kept an option open in case the NCP is disseminated in Maharashtra. Because NCP has already lost its MLAs. If they are not going to win enough seats in the parliamentary elections as well, then there is an option B that could be merger with the Congress and secure Supriya Sule's future to some extent. Because it's not the case that if Sharad Pawar wants to merge with the Congress, the Congress should show the big heart to accommodate Pawar and Supriya at the same position. I don't think Congress is in that mood, because even if Pawar and his family joins the Congress, they will not be in the top rank leaders. They will have to play the second fiddle to the state leaders in the state.
They have to play second fiddle to the Gandhi family, of course, in the Congress. But Banuchandar, Nagarajan, this point keeps coming up every now and then, especially with when it's raised by Sharad Pawar, the fact that there could be at some point a Ghar-Waapsi of all the factions that have left the Congress, the INC, over the last couple of decades. Do you see this happening possibly if the results go otherwise post-June? All of the factions that left the Congress party over the last 2 decades, the TMC, the YSRCP, all of them coming back into the INC.
Let's look at the big picture, Sandeep. In political theory, there is a concept called median voter theorem. It says that most of the voters are towards the center, and there are extremist voters in the right and left. They are like a normal distribution curve. And the political party that is closest to the median, that is the one that usually wins. On the right of that curve is the BJP. On the left, things are all right, things are missing, and Congress is moving slowly towards the extreme left, as we can see from this campaign. So what Sharad Pawar is thinking is that there needs to be a poll for the left of center, and it doesn't come to a coalition. The BB alliance has been a failure because of coordination issue. So what he's hinting at is that there needs to be a poll for the left of center, and it has to be come from the Congress. And for that to happen, all the breakaway factions of the Congress, erstwhile Congress, should come together. So he says it in a very folksy manner, but I think this is the fundamental thinking behind it. Couple of points on this. Ideologically, this makes sense. But what about the other two of the troika, which is basically organization and leadership, right? Organization of the Congress and many of the regional parties are in haters. How they will, whether they will accept or not towards this coalition is something that we have to see. Last point of leadership. Leadership is very ephemeral. Okay, to quote Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones, it's even a small man can cast a long shadow, right? And it is very time-based. So we have to see how leadership evolves over the next 5 years. But the other two factors are theoretically there for this to happen. Whether it actually happens or not is something we have to wait and see.
Jayant, this point that Banuchandar made, that fact that the Congress, the NCP is playing for the Congress to be that left of center pole around which the entire opposition could coalesce. You see that happening post-June, the 4th of June, if the elections results, follow the trajectory that everyone believes it will, that Prime Minister Modi could return for a third term. What's your take on this?
Let's take this issue, particularly in Sharad Pawar's statement, in a bit different way, the way I want it. It's very simple for me. It's because Sharad Pawar is now octogenarian. He's 84. His health is not well. And he had to take rest yesterday from the campaign. That is more important. And that too from the daughter's campaign. And now what all he wants, like every Indian politician, like every regional setup, and right from the Congress stalwart of Nehru Gandhi clan, what he wants, that his daughter should be at least the chief minister of Maharashtra. Now at the same time, take what is Congress? Congress is leaderless currently. Ashok Chavan has left. Prithviraj Chauhan is another octogenarian. He is around 79. He has already said, I will not contest again the elections. And there is a big vacuum of top leadership for the post of chief minister, even in Congress.
Even in the Congress,
As per I know, Vijay Wadettiwar and Nana Patole are not acceptable even to the rest of Congress because of their own approach, and there is a lot of dissent even about Mr. Nana Patole also. At this time, when Congress is in need, and even Sharad Pawar is in need because he is seeing his days are numbered. Very simple logic. When both are in need, there can be the merger. In
Absolutely.
In Mamta's case, merger cannot be because Mamta is riding the horse in Bengal.
Absolutely.
So Mamta will not come because she doesn't need, though Rahul may need. Here the point is this, in Maharashtra, if a woman, that too from the politically dominant Maratha caste, having relationship with Thackeray, because Supriya married with Sule, who is the relative of Thackeray. So having relationship with Thackeray, a woman, that too Maratha and Pawar clan, at a time, if Rahul is getting all three things in the platter, then he may ignore the insult that Pawar did with his mother Sonia
in 1999, 25 years back, when he broke away. But Jayant, important point there that you brought about the regional parties, and in fact, Brijesh, let's play up that graphic that we have on the breakaway Congress factions as they are in the Lok Sabha today and the number of seats that they make up. That's an interesting tally there. There are 52 seats of the INC, and there are almost 50 seats of all the breakaway Congress factions, and the most powerful of them, of course, being the YSRCP and the Trinamool Congress. Brijesh, what would be the bait that would bring the YSRCP and Mamata Banerjee back into the Congress? Is there
there's absolutely no
nothing
bait.
The Congress can offer them?
There's absolutely no bait, Sandeep, because Mamata Banerjee, even if she loses couple of more seats or 3-4 more seats in the general election, she still is the most powerful party when it comes to assembly election. So nobody is discounting or counting her off as far as the assembly election in West Bengal is concerned. Same is the case with YSRCP. YSRCP has to be literally, be down in the dump for him to start imagining a situation where he can actually go back to Congress party. See, any kind of negotiation is fruitful when it is done from a position of strength.
That's right.
The reason why Sharad Pawar has floated this idea that, all the regional parties have to gravitate towards Congress is basbasically he's masking the real thing, which is his own party.
His own
and,
party
even
and
his own
political
party,
survival.
if he gets 30-40% of the number of seats which he's fighting, it'll be a completely different Sharad Pawar.
Right.
And for him to expect Congress to show big heart, when the Congress was going hammer and tongs against Adani and all, and therein pops a picture where Sharad Pawar is standing there next with Adani. How and what the gentleman was talking about, how they raise the foreign origin of Sonia Gandhi and walk away. For them to expect Congress to show big heart is like, shooting in the dark. I don't expect Congress to do
shooting in the dark, but Sharad Pawar has been there before, Brijesh. You remember in 78 he left and he became chief minister at the ripe old age of 38. He was the youngest chief minister, I believe, in the country at that time. And then he came back into the Congress.
No, but the situation has completely changed, Sandeep. From that politics to today's politics, the Congress is still grappling for its own survival. We don't know whether they are going to win 55 or they're going to be further reduced to 45.
Less than 55.
So, I'm just saying that, you originally you gravitate to a party which is the totem pole of the opposition, which is like, you have 110 seats and you feel like, I may go and form an alliance and all so that at least my security is guaranteed. On 4th of June, nobody envisages that kind of scenario. If YSR CP or Mamata Banerjee wins 20 Lok Sabha seats, why on earth would they want to play second fiddle to Rahul Gandhi?
So they would absolutely, there's nothing that the Congress offers in its present form to any of these parties.
Absolutely.
And very clearly what Sharad Pawar is doing is something for his own family and his own political survival, it looks like. The plan B that Sharad Pawar famously keeps by his side. But thank you very much, Brijesh, my guests, Banuchandar Nagarajan and Jayant Mainkar, and of course Kiran Tare from Mumbai, for throwing light on the Congress Ghar-Waapsi, as Sharad Pawar seems to have put out once again. And it seems to be an artful Maratha politician putting out another plan B for his political survival post the 6th of June. But that's a story we'll be tracking again very closely, because with Sharad Pawar, there are always surprises in store. It's been 7 months since the horrific 7th October 2023 attack by Hamas on Israeli civilians. And now the Israeli army has just entered Rafah. It's another phase of their ongoing ground operations against Hamas in Gaza. But there are still questions about the October 7th attack, the lack of intelligence that led to a confused and disorganized response by the military and the police. So what went wrong? How could Israel's intelligence fail to ring the bell? How did Mossad fail? Joining me to discuss this is Prem Mahadevan, researcher in intelligence studies and author of Spies Among the Sands. Prem, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Prem, I must say that it's an astonishing work that you put together on the Mossad. It's rare for Indian researchers to research foreign intelligence agencies, and you've done that with aplomb. 7 decades, a sweep from 1947 right to present day. How long did it take you to write this book on Mossad?
It took me the better part of 2.5 years.
Right. Prem, now I must start by asking you about the a topic that you've raised in the book, of course, and which is on everyone else's mind. The 7th October attack. Mossad is believed to have near supernatural powers. If you look at it, the kind of hype around the agency. How did an agency like Mossad fail to detect the 7th October attacks?
Well, I would begin by pointing out what some Mossad, ex-Mossad officers who are now at liberty to comment to the media have pointed out, that this is not really a Mossad failure necessarily. It is more likely to be a failure of the Israeli military intelligence and of the domestic security service, the Shabak or Shin Bet, as it's called. So Mossad might claim later on, when the inquiry is held and a post-mortem is done, that it focused on tracking Hamas's funds, its transnational flows, and the decisions made by Hamas leaders who were based in Qatar and elsewhere in the world. So it might say that, look, this didn't really fall within our jurisdiction, therefore the bulk of the responsibility for the failure lies with Aman, that is the military intelligence service, or with Shabak or Shin Bet. So I would start with that initial caveat first.
Right. And interesting, Prem, this is exactly the kind of debate that we had in India just 25 years ago, just after the Kargil war. This inter-intelligence agency, fight. Who was responsible for detecting those intrusions? But that's a subject for another day. But how would you classify this 7th October failure, Prem? Pulling back from just Mossad and looking at this entire Israeli intelligence apparatus, there are it's like an alphabet soup of agencies. You have Shabak, you have Shin Bet, you have Mossad, you have the Unit 8200, one of the most formidable Israeli intelligence organizations. So a lot of these agencies claim to have already had the plans for this beforehand, which leads one to ask the question, was this an intelligence failure or was this a policy failure? The failure to appreciate the intelligence that was given to you? I
would say that in certain cases it becomes very difficult to separate the two, because when you have something of this magnitude, everyone's going to blame the other side. Now, I would point out something. I mean, historically, if you look at it, the Yom Kippur War of 1973 is considered an intelligence failure.
Right.
But we do know that actually there was intelligence provided in advance. And as my book says, the Israelis made a conscious decision that they could absorb the first blow.
Right.
Right. So that has come out now, and it's not really a matter of dispute. So on the one hand, there was a lack of warning, but it wasn't that they were completely caught off guard in 1973. Now, in the case of 7th October, I think what we're going to see is, first, there was a huge element of wishful thinking, which clouded the Israeli threat perception. And that wishful thinking came down to the idea that for a while, ever since 2018, Israel had been cooperating with the Qataris to send funds to Hamas. So that was a policy of a so-called buying peace or buying quiet. Not so much peace, actually, just quiet, keeping Hamas dormant by giving them some money which they could use to govern Gaza. And I think when one is committed to a policy like that, one starts to miss out some of the warning signs. Now, we do know there have been reports in the New York Times and so on that Unit 8200, the Signals Intelligence Unit of Israeli military intelligence, did pick up signs that there were preparations for an attack. We also do know that the Israelis came into possession of a detailed Hamas war plan, which was very similar, more or less identical to what unfolded on the 7th of October. But the key is, was that plan collected as a result of routine collection activity, or was it a result of very targeted and focused collection? And the impression one gets is that this was routine collection. They, as a part of their normal coverage of that group, found out that this is what Hamas aspired to do, and they assumed, we do know from whatever sources, whatever leaks have come out, that the Israelis assumed Hamas's war plan was purely aspirational, that their capabilities were not quite there in terms of carrying out such an ambitious attack. So Israel depended very heavily on the idea that it could buy off Hamas to stay quiet, and that it had very good physical security measures which could thwart a smaller attack, a smaller offensive. The scale of what happened on 7th October was huge, and that overwhelmed the Israeli defense.
Absolutely. And in fact, Prem, when you were speaking, I was just reminded of those lines from your book, the scenario that you built up after the Yom Kippur War of 1973, when Aman, the military intelligence, estimated that Egypt would not strike until they had got all the deliveries of their new fighter aircraft and their Scud missiles from the Russians, the Soviet Union, of course. And they would, this kind of an attack wouldn't happen until 1976. So there are eerie parallels between 2023 and 1973 in your book, as you've brought out. But, you know, what will Mossad look like, Prem? Tell us what it will look like after this war is over. And surely it shows no sign of it ending. But once it does, how will the Israelis overhaul their intelligence architecture, and what kind of role do you see Mossad playing in that new architecture?
So I think what we are going to see is that the Mossad will have to do a very fine balancing act. Now, they'll be experts at this. I don't think it'll be a problem for them. But they'll have to do a balancing act between carrying out covert operations in countries with capable security services and yet building up an international counterterrorism coalition that will be targeted at Iran. So here's the thing. There's going to be some tension with, for example, Qatar and Turkey going forward. Right. It has been reported that Israel had to give the Qataris an assurance that it would not assassinate Hamas leaders on Qatari soil. And in return, the Qataris agreed to facilitate the return of Israeli hostages who are now being held by Hamas. Now that promise, if it was given, and there's no, we don't know for sure it was, but if it was given, that promise will have a shelf life. At some point, the Israelis are likely to go after Hamas leaders wherever they are, including Qatar and also Turkey. Now, we do know from media reports that the Turkish intelligence service, MIT, has been very active in disrupting Israeli espionage and intelligence collection efforts against both Iran and against Palestinian militant groups on Turkish soil. So I would imagine that Israel will have to, the Mossad specifically, will have to refine its tradecraft, that if it wants to target terrorist leaders who are based in countries where Israel has not normally carried out paramilitary operations, it would have to do this and yet not get caught by fairly competent local security services. We must remember what happened in Dubai in 2010, when the Israelis assassinated Hamas financial official, and they got away with it. Or, I mean, it's believed the Israelis carried out the assassination. Let's be very exact here. It's thought that the Mossad was involved. And the photographs and the cover identities of these alleged assassins was put out over the international media. Now, that operation was not really a failure, but it did lead to the exposure of the actual team which carried out the attack or the assassination. So if the Mossad wants to carry out more operations in countries where there are strong surveillance technologies, it will have to improve its tradecraft. But on the other hand, it will also have to rely on international intelligence partners to warn of terrorist attacks carried out by, for example, Hezbollah, which has quite a strong international reach. So that balancing act will have to be done.
The balancing act will have to be done indeed, and Mossad seems to be the agency just to do the right thing, because as your book brings out, they're pretty adept. They land on their feet after every crisis. And here's my next question. Prem, what do you see as Mossad's biggest achievement, and what has been their biggest failure since 1947?
I would divide that into two levels, the operational and the strategic. So if you look at operational successes, I think the Mossad has no shortage of them. So we can start with, for example, the killing of Imad Mughniyeh, the Hezbollah operations chief in Damascus in 2008. Now that operation is believed to have been carried out with the support of CIA. So it's not exclusively an Israeli success. But then one could argue that the killing of Ali Hassan Salameh in Beirut in 1979, that was an even bigger success, because that cut the communication link between the PLO and the CIA. And that ensured that Israel had about a decade or so before the Americans then started to again deal with the PLO at a high level. So that was a success as well. Then you could, on the failure side, you could look at, for example, the killing of an innocent civilian in Lillehammer in 1973. Now that was a failure. Or the attempted assassination of Khalid Mashal in Jordan in 1997. That was a failure. But these are operational failures. At a more strategic level, I think Israel's or the Mossad's greatest success was probably supporting the Yemen or involvement, its covert involvement in the Yemeni civil war in the 1960s, because that tied down a third of the Egyptian army in Yemen and made sure that Nasser, the president of Egypt, could not really threaten Israel, although he was prone to blustering and saying that he would fight Israel. He really didn't have the capacity to. So the fact that Israel was able to keep a third of his army tied down for a long period of time, that really contributed to Israel's spectacular victory in the 1967 war, which was probably its finest hour. So I would say there, and you also see that decade, the 1960s, as probably being Mossad's golden era.
Right.
In terms of the audacity of its operations and its successes. I mean, when I was researching for this book, one thing that struck me is that a lot of the great stories that are associated with this agency are pretty much in the past. And this is not to say that they don't have spectacular successes ongoing now, which we may hear of in some decades to come. But, if you really look at what people focus on, it's always something like Entebbe or something dating back to the 1960s.
Right.
If you go more recently, you start to look at, say, a big failure was the Lebanon War of 1982. From what we know, the Mossad in particular really had quite poor coverage of Lebanon. And that may have been one reason why, for example, Israel was caught off guard by the sudden rise of Hezbollah and the power of that group in the early 1980s.
Right, absolutely. And Prem, before I go, my last question to you is, your book brings out this 4 factors that are responsible for Mossad's success. And one, of course, is being the Israeli diaspora, a great source of support overseas for the intelligence agency. But it also talks of this culture of militarized risk-taking that exists in the political setup, Israel's political setup. I mean, of course, because of the fact that a lot of their leaders are military men who've been served in the IDF and who've indeed headed Mossad as well. Can intelligence agencies, successful intelligence agencies, be insulated from the character of the governments that they work for?
I think that really that the question actually comes down to what exactly is the nature of the country. If there are intelligence agencies which do little more than run, than conventional espionage, gathering open source literature, grey literature, collecting palace gossip, and basically then commercial or economic intelligence. And that might be all they are required to do, and they can be quite successful at that. When you look at geopolitical contestation, on the other hand, and you look at the Cold War, the US versus the Soviet Union, or anything that is really on a bigger scale, there you start to have questions of long-term security and strategic policy coming in. And once a policy has been introduced, then the intelligence agencies have to work within the framework of that policy. So to put it very bluntly, I mean, coming back to October 7th, if there is a script that we are going to essentially marginalize this issue, the Hamas issue, the whole issue of Palestinian nationalism, that becomes very much part of the informal security doctrine of a country, right? Then intelligence agencies have to work according to the assumption that unless they can openly or unless they can detect very clear and unambiguous signs of an attack, they still have to anticipate smaller level events. It cannot be something massive because that completely overturns the security paradigm. The Israelis work according to what are called conceptions or concepts, right? And that's essentially a paradigm for how to interpret the current security situation. That will always be there with a country which faces multiple threats and needs to conceptualize and frame ways of thinking about such threats.
Right. Thanks very much, Prem. That's a very, very detailed take on Mossad. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's rare for an Indian researcher, counter-terrorism researcher, to look closely at a foreign intelligence agency, and you seem to have done that with Spies Among the Sands, and we'll keep coming back to you for updates on Israel and Israel's national security, especially when it comes to agencies like Mossad. But thanks very much for joining us this evening on the News9 Plus show. On the 9th of May last year, riots erupted in Pakistan after PTI leader Imran Khan was arrested from the Islamabad High Court. PTI party workers vandalized a dozen military installations, including the Jinnah House, the Lahore Corps Commander's House, Mianwali Air Base, and the ISI building in Faisalabad. Now, it's a year after that incident, the army has agreed to forming a judicial commission to look at what happened. And former President Asif Ali Zardari declared the 9th of May as the 9/11 of Imran Khan. He thinks Khan destroyed Khan that day. How has 9/5, if we can call it that, changed Pakistan? To talk about that, I'm joined by Zulkarnain Tahir, journalist with the Dawn in Lahore, Patikrit Payne, and of course my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul here in the News9 Plus studio. Zulkarnain, I want to start by asking you, how much of a defining moment in Pakistan's history was what happened on the 9th of May last year, when it comes to this tenuous relationship between the civilian government and the military, the Pakistan army?
You see, May 9 defined in that way that people of Pakistan said enough is enough. What you have been doing for the last 75 years,
right.
No more, that should be the order of the day. And yeah, people showed their reaction, and which later, of course, PTI of Imran Khan tried to distance itself because
right.
of its political needs. But in fact, people had that kind of anguish, that kind of anger, yeah, that had come out on May 9, in fact.
Yeah, anger had erupted, and Aditya, I never thought we'd see this kind of outrage against the Pakistan army. Not even after the 1971 war have we seen the public take to the streets this way. But, you know, the fact that Imran Khan was the man at the center of all of this, and we were worrying whether he would actually make it out alive last year, given what he had called for. There was, you know, reports that he had incited the mobs to go and attack all these installations of the military. What's the future of Imran Khan a year later, Aditya? He continues to be in jail and he's extremely popular.
You know, firstly, we need to realize that there were three major factors that were responsible for the 9th May kind of attack.
Right.
One was the kind of, you know, the brutality that the civilians were facing.
Yes.
The civilians of Pakistan who were tired and exhausted, that Pakistan army was taking over the political affairs, the governance of the country from the politicians in itself. That means that the democracy was a sham. Second factor, of course, was the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, in which the Pakistan army believed that you know, they will act as their second fiddle in Afghanistan, and of course the Taliban will be very close to the Pakistan army and work in coordination. That clearly didn't happen. Taliban had its own ways of functioning. The Haqqani network, in fact, was very much independent, particularly in Kabul, and did not listen to the diktats of the ISI. And the third major factor was the clash within the Pakistan army, be it the former Pakistan army chief and the former ISI chief, who did not come to terms with each other, who were not on the same page. One was in favor of Imran Khan and second was embarrassed by Imran Khan and had to act against him. Now, Imran Khan certainly is a very major, important political figure in Pakistan, especially because he's not in exile. He's very much in jail. As of now, I still believe that if a democratic election takes place, he will come out with historic margins.
Absolutely.
And clearly at this stage, the Pakistan army's credibility has come under question in the last 1 year. Because the kind of embarrassment that they faced on 9th of May is unparalleled in history. We haven't seen such kind of a revolt of common people rebelling against the Pakistan army, the generals who were almost worshipped in Pakistan. Now, everybody realizes that the Pakistan army works like a corporate, like a corporate business house in Pakistan. But look at the situation now. The Afghan Ministry of Defense is hitting out at the Pakistan army. The Afghanistan Taliban is saying that Pakistan army is hand in gloves with Daesh, with ISI, and in fact are targeting the Chinese themselves. This is the kind of statement that is coming out. And now it was openly said by India and many other countries that terrorist bases are in Afghanistan. And this was before the Taliban takeover. And now the tables have turned. Afghanistan and Taliban are saying that Pakistan is nurturing terrorists and they have evidence to support the same, and they will expose them if Pakistan does not change its ways and the way it deals with Taliban.
It's shocking how the tables seem to have turned on the Pakistan army, especially the Afghan Taliban that's ruling Kabul seems to have had a different view of things. But Pathikrit, do you think that Imran Khan, as popular as he was, kind of failed to read the resolve of the Pakistan army, that he thought that maybe the Pakistan military was a little weak last year and he miscalculated, and the fact that the military has cracked down with extreme brutality on the party, it's literally taken the PTI apart. Though it's a different matter, as Aditya mentioned, that if there's a free and fair election in Pakistan, he would win by a landslide. But this tenuous relationship between Imran Khan and the Pakistan military that was once his benefactor and who's now they've become deadly enemies. Do you see the tables now being turned once again, that he could be back in their good books?
Yeah, Sandeep, first of all, there's not a single Pakistani prime minister who ever completed his term as a prime minister. So it was inevitable that someday or the other, Imran Khan will be in the bad books of the Pakistan army as well. But if you look at what happened that day, I'll start where, Aditya also mentioned it. I think the Pakistan army itself was taken by surprise by what happened, because I think the army itself is deeply divided. One part is pro-America, the other part is deeply Talibanized. So yes, that kind of brutal crackdown was inevitable someday or the other, because Pakistan army, for a long period of time since 1947 had an aura of invincibility, that nothing can touch it, whatever happens below it. So that day that aura was broken. Now somewhere they had to do something to bring a sense of normalcy, to restore a sense of normalcy where the hierarchy would be maintained. But in spite of that, yes, they have been able to, contain Imran Khan, put him behind bars. But if you look at the result of the election, it is very real that his popularity has only gone up. See, for any kind of country where you have stranglehold of the armed forces or a dictatorial regime, you invariably, first of all, have to ensure one thing, that your economic aspects are taken care of so that people's basics are met. Then they will not revolt. Now, here is a country which has tremendous external debt problem, internal debt crisis, huge inflation. There are ethnic crisis, sectarian crisis. 1,600 textile factories in the last 1 year alone has shut down, which is 1/3 of their entire textile sector, which contributes to 60% of their exports. I mean, we have seen visuals of a dozen people fighting for one sack of grain. So unless Pakistan army can, ensure that the economic aspect of it can be, taken care of, which I think they cannot. Vis-a-vis what they see in social media in terms of rise of, India and other countries, I think this is only going to implode further in future. They may have been able to contain for the time being, but I would not be surprised if something like this happens again in sooner or later.
Absolutely, and there will be bills to pay for that, Pathikrit. Zulkarnain, we were told about a judicial commission of inquiry that would go into the May 9th violence. It's been a year now, and why is there no action on this so far? Is the Pakistan army actually keeping Imran Khan as a plan B? They don't want to push him beyond a point. What's the reason for this judicial commission not being instituted?
Yeah, you see, judicial commission, even the ISPS spokesperson, Mr. Sharif Chaudhry, talk about the constitution of the judicial commission, saying that it has to be formed and it has to look the events of 2014 sit-in by Imran Khan and then attack on the parliament and the Supreme Court. But at the same time, he said, since on May 9 incident, the footprints of PTI are so visible, there is no point going into it. It's obvious that army would not like to take this issue to the court or to like any independent body like judicial commission probing this matter, which army has settled it once for all that yes, Imran is right now enemy number one. His party should be disbanded. Like you have seen that in February 8th, PTI contested the election as independent candidates. Its iconic badge was snatched from it. So moving forward from here on, like the army saying that if Imran tenders an apology and says that he is gonna shun the politics of hatred,
right,
and pledges to do the politics of kind of reconciliation and constructive politics he would do, then there is a point that we may talk to him. And at the same time, he clarified that the talk should be among the political players.
Right. Absolutely interesting points. Zulkarnain, Aditya, do you ever see Imran Khan saying sorry to the Pakistan army for what he did?
Well, I won't be surprised if he does.
Right.
You know, after all, he's a politician.
Yes.
And you never know what time really arrives in future.
Right.
Where Pakistan army could be desperate and Imran Khan could be desperate as well.
Absolutely. The plan B, as we were talking about.
The plan B, because you know, Imran Khan interestingly is in jail.
Yes.
There could have been easily, you know, he could have easily been asked to leave the country.
Right.
And immediately put into exile, as has been done with many other leaders in the past.
Right.
You see what happened with Pervez Musharraf. You see what happened with Nawaz Sharif.
Absolutely.
And several other leaders. But Imran Khan has been kept there.
Yes.
And Imran Khan in the past has been a puppet of the Pakistan army.
Yes.
I mean, when he came to power, he was very much in coordination with the ISI and Rawalpindi and was doing their betting.
Right.
But immediately tables turned in the last few years, and we've seen what happened. I won't be certainly surprised if in future both Pakistan army and Imran Khan take a U-turn. But as of now, it is a PDM government. Again, PDM does not really reflect the people of Pakistan because these are many political parties that have come together. And we've seen a lot of civilians being uncomfortable and exhausted with the kind of pressures that they are coming out from the Pakistan army. We saw the radical, Fazlur Rahman also speaking inside the parliament and indirectly taking pot shots at the Pakistan army, saying they can't even frame their own laws.
Right.
They have to first go to the rooms of the Pakistan army generals to approve their laws and thereafter come to the constitutional body and the parliament. So that reflects the reality of Pakistan today, which is going through a major churning. How long will this take? Will there ever be a free and fair democracy in Pakistan? Will the Pakistan army be able to control the kind of power they had in the past? Is certainly interesting months ahead.
Interesting months ahead, as Aditya Rajkol just put it. But thanks very much, Zulkarnain, for joining us. Pathikrit, to talk about Pakistan's defining moment, the 9/11 as Zardari called it, the civilians taking to the streets and protesting against the Pakistan army. But that's implosion for you. Pakistan, state that always throws up surprises, even as we are going into a year after that historic moment in Pakistan's history.